Hello and welcome. We are back on the Edit Undo show, but this time we are at UX South Africa. Now, I know you can't necessarily compress the talk into a couple of minutes, but what would you say is the main, maybe one or two takeaways from what you're sharing today?
I think for me, like now working from home, people are inviting companies into the home. I think it's really important that as design leaders and managers that we respect that they have invited us into the home.
Yeah.
And we make sure that the work environment is family friendly.
Yeah.
In terms of work hours, in terms of pressure, in terms of how they're treated and the stress. I think that's the first thing. And then I think the other thing is also about creating a safe and sustainable team, in the sense that you want the team that will endure, so that the children of people working in your team would want to one day work for your team. And for me, that's a really good lens. If the kids of my team don't want to join my team as their dream, it means something about pride.
Yeah.
They should see their parent excited to go to work and want to share that excitement.
That's a high bar.
Yeah,
that's a very high bar.
Aim for the moon.
Fair enough, and hopefully you'll shoot for the stars and
get the moon.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Okay,
if you aim for the moon, maybe you'll get some dirt in the desert somewhere.
Fair enough. So, if you don't mind, tell us a little bit about what you're sharing with our audience today.
Yeah, okay. So I think just in a nutshell. So I start this disclaimer because I think initially when I started giving the talk, and this is like where I'm getting at, where I'm like, whoa, I can't believe I did that. When I started giving it, a lot of people walked away from the talk with the impression that I said design systems are bad. And you shouldn't do a design system. And I think I want to just from the get-go make it clear that that's not what I'm saying.
Yeah.
So my talk is actually titled, I've changed the title so many times. I think the most recent one is like design system dumpster fires or something. But effectively it's exploring like design systems that failed. Okay. And because a lot of my thoughts, a lot of my initial thinking from this came from the design system survey that Smartbox does, or Sparkbox, I can't remember their name. They did a lot of the design work for CodePen and so forth, do every year. And I think maybe 2 years ago, they asked like, would you consider your organization's design system successful? And I think only 40% of like respondees said they would consider it successful or very successful. And and it's gotten a bit better nowadays. I think the most recent one they did is about like only 30% said that I think they rephrased the question as well. I think they said now, does it address a need that you have? And I think 2/3 said it does. So it's getting better, and I think that's just part of the process of us actually figuring out what design systems even are. But I think like 1/3 is a big number still.
Yeah.
And and that's the most optimistic data out there. So that means if we have 3 people, one of them, if 3 people do a design system, one of them would feel that it wasn't a success.
Yeah.
Okay, and that's a big thing. Design systems are expensive. And so what I wanted to do is it's good that 2 out of 3 design systems are successes.
Yeah.
And 1 out of 3 isn't that bad, but what I find concerning is that there's no discussion on that.
Yes.
I couldn't find anything online talking about like design systems that didn't work out. There's a ton of case studies about like, great success and why you need a design system. No one talks about, there's also very little discussion on the fact that there are so many design systems that are seen as not successful.
Yeah.
So I think what I and like, also just shout out to someone that helped me on this, Chris LaRue. What we started doing is we started interviewing people anonymously. We started asking around people that feel they were part of a process where a design system ended up not being very successful. And we started doing a lot of interviewing, and I think just from curiosity, like trying to figure out like, why is that the case? And like, and this is maybe what I should have said after the part where I said like, I'm not saying you shouldn't do a design system. Like I just do design systems. That's my day job, like basically my day job. Like day in, day out, I just work, I do consulting work, I consult teams, I help them build design systems and stuff. So I love design systems. And I want to make that clear. But because I love them, like, I'm scared that, like, there's a lot of common mistakes that I see people make. And I'm scared that, like, they give design systems a try because everyone told them how amazing and powerful design systems are. And they are. But because anything you do at scale, like if it just goes slightly awry because of the scale, it just turns into a mess.
Yeah.
So, and I think that is some people's experience of design systems. And then they just discard this entire idea of design systems. Because they're like, we did it, our organization, it was a mess. Like, I don't want to hear about designs. And a lot of people that we spoke to, that was their sentiment, actually.
We are about halfway through day 2, technically, of UX South Africa. Day 1 was the workshop. That was very cool. Day 2, we had our first speakers, and you were speaker number 3, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes, I think so, yes. That was, yeah.
Cool. And so what were you talking about today?
So today I was discussing service design for dental healthcare. So my whole study, so I did a study in my master's, and I was trying to increase the frequency of dental checkups so that, because I saw that the rate of dental checkups is actually really low. And if we increase the amount people go, then the risk is lower when they actually go for other checkups. I mean, this research I did for like over a year. And I mean, that's a lot of research to actually hold and kind of gatekeep, and I was going through the process of like service design and all these different ways of doing research. And now going into the work environment, I see that previously I was in a work environment, then I went and studied, and then I worked again. So what I had noticed is that, the way we do research is very generic. And what I spoke about is that research can actually be a very creative process. And I think we miss out on that. We kind of say, okay, we're going to be doing an interview. This is the proposal. This is the research plan. This is how we do it. Whereas what I wanted to talk about in my talk was how can we do research in a different way and get actually valuable insights. Like I saw this study where like people wanted to gauge where a group of people were from in this area. And what they did was they just held a map. They held a map in the middle of the street, and people came and they just pinpointed where they were from.
Nice.
And it was interactive, but it's research. What they got out of that was the insights that they needed, rather than going to people and saying, hi, I'm so-and-so, I'm from this person, and like, where are you from? The person is actively going and interacting with this map.
And then, because I think if you, like in a structured interview, it's almost like the participant's mind is also like in a almost like clinical structured kind of environment, while something like that feels a little bit more natural, a little bit more organic. Yeah,
like they just want to go ahead and do this rather than like them specifically thinking, oh no, if I tell you I'm from this country, then you might have preconceptions. No, they are making the decision.
We are at UX South Africa, so we've just had lunch. I think everyone is feeling a little bit calmer. All of the hangry people are now satisfied. But it's been a good day so far. I've been hearing great things about some of the talks. I haven't heard all of them, but the ones that I have heard have been great. And so now I'm sitting here with Kayembe Illunga.
That's it.
Is that it? Okay, wonderful. But you go by KG if I'm not mistaken.
That's true.
Okay, cool. So, firstly, I'm glad to be chatting with you. You're welcome to the show.
Thank you. Really good to be here. Good to be at UX South Africa today. There was a fantastic presentation here done about the dental practice itself and the perception about dental practice, and just by changing light, by changing the flow of the room, by changing how people are received, completely changes the perception of the experience that the people have in there.
Yes.
So it's not, I think that is the big message that I believe in, and it's something that I really want to get out into the market. It's not about just the app. It's not about the website. It's about how do we change the way we think to think for human beings. And please, I know it sounds like a very philosophical statement that I'm making right now, right? But really what it's about every single thing that we do. In the past, right? In big organizations, it was the biggest executive who said, this is where we go. This is what we do. And look, although it may work in some places, I won't say it doesn't work, because I've seen where it does work in some industries, in some places, obviously because of the knowledge that executive has, the experience, he's happy, he's quite comfortable to guide. But what I've seen, whether it's financial services, whether it's retailing, whether it's FMCG, is that the more humanized you make your experiences, the more you talk from the customer experience perspective, the easier it is to actually, one, sell those products or sell that service, and two, get the material business outcomes out of it. Now, people was always confusing, well, not confusing, they're like, experience, you guys just do nice designs, you do all of that, how does that help my business make money? And I think the major thing about experience, if it's done right, it's not about the output, right? And how it qualifies that the input is the research, the behavioral science that goes into it, the design hours, the output is whatever that experience is or that application is. But if experience design is done correctly, no matter what the industry is, be it or B2B or B2C, what you start to see is that you've got getting real material business outcomes. When I design, when I incorporate behavioral science, why am I doing that? I'm doing that so that if I draw this tick like that, or take this person on this journey, what happens is that there's an increase of sales or an increase of services in this channel that I'm trying to create, right? And if that is starting to happen, if people are servicing themselves on your digital channel instead of your traditional channels, if they're purchasing products on your digital channels, if you're creating memorable experiences, you should be able to start to track that in your balance sheet.
Exactly.
That is the power of experience. And I think not a lot of people in our industry talk about experience in that lens. They talk about the output, they talk about the design, they talk about the wireframe, the prototype, the app. What is the material business outcome that your design, your app is actually trying to achieve?
So now we have Steyn, one of the recent speakers to have spoken. It is still day 2. We're kind of getting closer towards the end of the day. But it's good to have you. It's good to have you on the show.
Thank you, Alfi. Appreciate it.
So I guess firstly, what were you sharing with everyone today?
So I was sharing this idea of being an optimist. And I guess the 3 main points about being an optimist is that problems are inevitable. And they always will be. They're necessary because we need them for progress. The second point, I guess, is around all problems are soluble, with this caveat, as long as they adhere to the laws of physics. And then the last point is we can solve these problems because we can build the necessary knowledge to do that. So as human species, we have this ability to create knowledge and solve problems. So that's essentially the 3 core points of the optimist. And how do you apply that to, general life, at your job, in society, and as we design things.
Amazing. That sounds very interesting. So there's just one thing that I'd maybe like you to elaborate on a little bit. The second point you said, all problems are soluble as long as they adhere to the laws of physics.
Yeah.
What do you mean by soluble?
So all problems can be solved. So
okay.
Whatever problem you see, that problem can be solved, as long as they kind of live in this space of the laws of nature.
Okay.
You can't defy the laws of nature.
Yeah. Fair enough. That's and I think it is good. It's an important thing to talk about because it's sometimes it can seem a little bit abstract to tell people the value of being an optimist, but it actually has tangible outcomes. And it changes your mindset in some ways. And maybe that's something that I don't know if you want to expand on a little bit. Like, what results, if you could put it that way, have you gotten from this idea of being an optimist?
Yeah. So, what is the impact of the problem on our lives? When we encounter a problem, whether that's a conflicting situation with someone at work or an actual design problem, how does that make us feel? What is the impact? Now, sometimes it makes us feel demotivated or disconnected. But with a worldview that problems are soluble, can be solved, we can find the necessary kind of solutions to solve this problem.
Yeah.
We can find, the drive to solve these problems. We can get through, these negative emotions.
Okay, that's amazing. And I think it is good to know because it's easy to sort of push mindset to the side and think that it's not a tangible aspect. but especially, and maybe I'm a little bit biased because I feel like I am an optimist, but it can be useful. Granted, I think there is also like the flip side to being an optimist. When you are an optimist, you maybe tend to take chances that are not always in your best interest, but I guess it's part of the process of solving those problems. We are at day 3 now of the UX South Africa event, and we have got a wonderful guest, one of our workshop hosts, Inez. Welcome.
Thank you.
Tell me first of all, we only had 2 workshops this year, which you were one of. How did, firstly, what were you engaging the audience with, and how did that go?
Okay, so we wanted to really teach people about designing for people with disabilities, and our focus was on designing for people who are completely blind, which is very different for designers because everything is supposed to be visual. And so it's quite, I guess, it's different from your usual day-to-day design work. And what we wanted to achieve was really just to show people that there's more that we still need to learn about, like designing the audio experience and understanding how that works. And also just to create the empathy. And so we brought, people from Blind SA in to come and participate in the workshop and test the work that the workshop attendees were designing. And it shocked people, which was great. I think it really...
Myself included.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that was the reaction that I really wanted, is just like, oh wow, this is hard, first of all, and it takes a lot more thought than you'd think of just like putting on a color blindness filter to see what that would look like. So and most recently, because now I work at ABSA, I look after the banking app.
Nice.
We've recently just started doing some investigation into like how the app is performing for people who can't see. And we started doing like internal testing, which was really interesting to see how people use our actual banking app and how they make payments and how they do the day-to-day things that you never think about catering for certain people for. So the work at ABSA, I think, really sparked the passion again. Especially if you think about like financial inclusion, making sure that you really allow people to make a payment safely or go to the ATM without having to ask someone to enter their PIN for them. So I think that there's a big responsibility that we play by working in a bank and ensuring financial inclusion.
It's easy to think of accessibility as a second thought, but then when you actually watch somebody trying to use your app and actually trying to access money which belongs to them, and they are unable to do so, it sort of shifts your lens and your understanding a little bit.
It does.
That's an interesting one.
And you have to see it, like you have to be there and see how they interact, and that's the thing that shocks you. Like, I've never seen anyone interacting with technology this way. That's the first thing that's like shocking for most people. And then it's like, okay, I've never seen this experience before. How do I actually design for it in the first place? So it's there's a whole world to it.
So Inez, who's my design director at ABSA, and I did a workshop on accessible design. It was really cool. I think just because it's a big passion of mine, I was really excited when I was asked to do it. And we've gotten some really awesome feedback from the members who attended, so that's always a good pat on the shoulder.
Myself included?
Yeah.
All right, and tell me, accessibility is not the typical thing that people would speak about at a conference, or maybe they might speak about it, but maybe not do a workshop. And so I found that quite interesting. Like, what got you into this subject completely? And you mentioned you've got a love for it. Like, how did that happen?
Okay, so actually very full circle moment as well. So I first met Inez through a She Can Do workshop. So she runs a non-profit called She Can Do, who uplifts women in the design community, and now actually men also. And they actually ran a workshop where Standard Bank wanted to improve their accessibility, and the workshop basically had us look at the Standard Bank banking app, tested with visually impaired users. It was actually multiple different kinds of disabilities.
Wow.
And then sort of work with developers in the workshop to improve it. And that kind of hands-on experience, it just opens your eyes in a way a talk never will. And I just immediately fell in love. So I was a graduate at APSA at the time. And when I got back to work on the Monday, I just said to the design director, I need to work on this, like, please let me. Luckily I was a grad, so I could work on pretty much anything.
Yeah.
And that's when my journey started. So it's been almost 5 years now where I've been at for it at APSA, and happy to say that our app has improved a lot. So.
Now at the end of day 3 of UX South Africa, and today we're chatting with Natalia. Welcome.
Hi Alfi.
So you're pretty much fresh off the stage. Can you tell us a little bit about what you're sharing with the audience today?
Sure. Well, I think a lot of nerves, firstly. I am quite an introvert, so it was very tricky to kind of do this, but I think it's always nice to put yourself out of your comfort zone.
Yeah.
I think today what I really wanted to share was just a little bit of my thinking around how we work together.
Yeah.
So being a product designer, I obviously flip between UX and UI quite a lot, and I know that's not always as common. So I really wanted to just chat to everyone about how can we interrogate our roles. So even if a UX designer isn't doing UI, we understand the relevance of it, and understand how it all works together in sort of a cohesive system, because that's essentially how we can create like a golden thread through our customer experience, and our products are a lot more seamless because the thinking is all aligned.
Yes.